Let's return now to news in the last hour or so that Justin Trudeau has resigned as Canada's Prime Minister and bring in William Lawrence, an Area Studies Director at the National Council on US-Arab Relations and a former US diplomat. William, thank you very much for talking to us. You're live from Washington. Thank you for your time. Can you take us through why Trudeau's popularity among his peers and indeed the public has plummeted of late?
Well, there's many aspects of this, local Canadian issues, international issues. But there were two recent resignations of the housing and the finance minister over what they called political gimmickry. Trudeau was announcing a sales tax holiday and also checks to certain subgroups of Canadians in the midst of a fiscal crisis aggravated by the incoming Trump administration's tariff threats. And that combined with a whole bunch of previous issues around Justin Trudeau and his leadership combined to make him unpopular, not only among Canadians who don't support his party, but among Canadians that support his party. And he's stepping down in order to give his party a chance to do well in the next round of elections, to announce a new leader, and he's staying on as a caretaker. But I think it's wrong to see him as a complete failure. I mean, he was in there for 10 years. He won the last two elections, and his policies have been well supported by most Canadians. But in the contentious political times in Canada, like that of the U.S., and with so much criticism from within his party about not doing more in the areas that he said he'd do well in, such as climate change and other things, people are just ready for a change of leadership at the top of his party, which will then be part of the changing politics with the new elections.
William, you mentioned there the economic threat launched by the US President-elect Donald Trump, who, of course, takes office on the 20th of January. This latest political crisis, it comes at a critical moment for Canada. Instability in particular, as the country faces numerous challenges. What in particular are those challenges, and how much was it all set off by Donald Trump?
Well, it certainly was a contributing factor, no question, because that led directly to the fiscal debates within his party that led to the resignations that brought to the fore the political crisis within the party that led to his resignation. But what prompted Trump, it bears underscoring, had nothing to do with Canada or even really Canadian-American relations. It was cheap political tactics by the American presidents, and he did the same thing with Mexico, saying he'd impose massive tariffs, which he often says he'll do with allies, whether in Europe or wherever, right, in order to get some political some political victory that will score him points with his domestic political audience. And he's saying he's opposing these tariffs until Canada gets illegal migrants and drug smuggling coming in from Canada under control, except that almost none of the fentanyl and the other illegal drugs the U.S. is concerned about come in from Canada, and nor do many of the illegal migrants. So again, it's just has to do with American political dynamics and really nothing to do with Canada. Now, in terms of what Canada's facing, Canada doesn't have the financial resources the U.S. has, with the dollar-based international economy and the ability of the U.S. government to borrow as they do and continue their international and domestic policies. Canada really has to balance its budget more intelligently. And with the fiscal strains coming out of COVID, like every other country, inflation like every other country, and a lot of anger among the population about these fiscal strains on household budgets, the national budget comes under scrutiny, and there's a huge debate going on about where Canada should be spending its money in the face of all these financial stresses and financial crises going on. And in that context, Trudeau was making moves that his own ministers weren't respecting. And so, again, this is sort of multi-layered here. Yes, Canada has a lot of financial headwinds and problems, but the internal politics of his party had much more to do, with these sort of marginal things he'd announced that weren't really going to have a big impact on the national budget. So it was more about political infighting than those actual financial problems, which themselves yes, were exacerbated by what Trump said, but those are global problems. And the reason we're seeing so much political turnover globally are those international financial problems.
William, thank you very much. We really appreciate your assessment of the situation. William Lawrence speaking to us live there from Toronto.